Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, Jesse.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, and I gotta share my screen.
I'll let him get settled before we do roll call. Go ahead and roll call, Carrie, please.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer,
Here.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco,
Here.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Wolski excused, Commissioner Peterson.
Here. Okay, you have the consent calendar sent to you. Anybody wish to pull anything out the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah,
As
that's right. Yeah,
as presented.
Have support?
Support.
Support. Okay, motion by Commissioner Francisco, support by Commissioner Lalone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Now we get the consent calendar. Public comment. Now we got to do public comment. So I'm jumping right ahead. I know we got a long agenda, so is there any here for public comment? Anybody online? Raising their hand? Nobody's raising their hand? Okay, we'll close public comment. Consent calendar again. Motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes actions as listed attached and filing of all reports. I have a motion. Anybody want to pull anything?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Konashevsky, support. Support by Commissioner LaHaye. Roll call, please.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Okay, Carrie, bills to pay. Anybody have any questions on Carrie to pay the bills? Not an entertained motion. Motion by Commissioner LaHaye,
I'll support.
support by Commissioner Lalone. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Osmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Nina Stork,
Yes.
any mental health?
Yes, thank you for having me here today. Might have to come
Oh,
up.
there you go.
All right.
So they can get your picture that way.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. My name's Nina Sork. I'm the Executive Director for Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health. We serve 4 counties, and Alpena is one of them. We have, when we're fully staffed, a little over 400 employees. So, of course, today's workforce, we're constantly looking for staff to become fully staffed. What I'd like to do is start my report for our fiscal year 2022. And for the past several years, I'm pleased to report to the board and the community members that Northeast Michigan Community Mental Health is financially stable. Additionally, our regional prepaid health plan, which is who we contract with, the NMRE, is also viable with a fully funded internal savings plan. So Northeast Michigan and our PHP, the NMRE, remain fiscally sound throughout 2022. So now let's look right here. I handed out our annual report. So if you'll turn to page 5, it tells you about the number of people we served and what of our specialty populations, how many were in each of them. So last year, there was a slight increase from the last 2 previous years. But historically, if you trended over the last 10 years, we're right around 2,000 people typically. It may fluctuate a few hundred, but right around the 2,000 mark for the 4 counties. This included 1,252 adults with serious persistent mental illnesses, 486 children with a serious emotional disturbance that we treated, and 361 persons with intellectual or developmental disabilities. This increase over last year was in services, the slight jump to children and to the IDD populations. We assisted 1,318 people in our crisis program, and 146 persons were served by employment services. We believe that our agency, that the best thing for a person's mental health is a paycheck. So we had 146 disabled folks that were able to have some type of employment. Our psychiatrists, physician's assistants, and nurse practitioners assisted 1,478 individuals in our psychiatric service program. As you can see, that we ended the year with a net income of $565,158. I want to assure the commissioners that we do not get to keep any of that money. Okay, that doesn't go into a savings fund for us at all. And that net income, it goes back to the state and the taxpayers of Michigan. We start every year a $39 million budget with about $40,000. And then each month we receive money to provide all the services that we need in our catchment area. So this includes all the services and specialty populations that are identified on the graph, as well as crisis services and inpatient psychiatric stays come out of those funding. So anyone with Medicaid or that is indigent, we take care of them and we pay for those services. If we are able to meet all of these service needs and we end the year in the black, either Medicaid or general funds, then those funds get returned back. I also am pleased to note there's 49 counties in the state of Michigan that do not have adequate psychiatric services. Or children's services, psychiatric children's. I'm pleased to announce we have 3 psychiatrists at Community Mental Health. We also have a child psychiatrist where there's only about 4,000 of them in the whole country. So we're very blessed. The things that is even better is they're all homegrown. One grew up in Black Lake, one married a man from Roger City and moved back here with their children. And the last one that we just hired last August is Dr. Alicia Thibault Ladkey, who is originally from Alpena and graduated from Alpena High School. As soon as she finished her medical degree, we recruited her and she's working with us for about 11 months now. She's been with us. We also have physician's assistants and nurse practitioner. So I'm very lucky because in our shop, we do no telemed. Everything can be done unless the client prefers it. They'll go to one of our out county and see the doctor in our office here in Alpena on a tele. But we primarily do face-to-face services with our psychiatry and our medication providers. So Northeast Michigan has been actively focusing on becoming more and more involved and visible in the community, and especially in promoting our crisis services. Our crisis services is for everyone in the community, private pay, private insured. We can provide crisis services for anyone. We've been doing interviews with the news media. We've enhanced our social media and partnering with other nonprofits. We're trying to focus on being good community partners, which also means educating the community. So every month we've provided trainings at Alpena Community College for behavioral health professionals and the community at large. We've done dementia, we've done anxiety disorders, we've done depression, we've done Social Security benefits, how to work with Social Security. We provided a ADD, all kinds of things. I think we've got one coming up for fetal alcohol syndrome. So we're trying to become a good partner and educate people in the community. This year, we also, in order to be more visible, we hosted our first 5K walk run in the community during May of Mental Health Awareness Month. We've set a goal for 100 people and we smashed it, and 254 people showed up on a chilly, rainy day in May on a Saturday and participated. So that'll become an annual event. It's to get people comfortable with our agency and to reduce the stigma of mental illness. So my charge, I want to talk about the health crisis that I want to alert people to. And I've been going around the League of Women Voters and other places to let people know, and if there's anything you can do with our senators, our representatives. My charge as a CMH director is to provide community-based treatment and support services for the individuals I talked about above that are in our specialty populations. Anyone that can be managed outside a hospital or an institution, they become my people to take care of, okay? It can be difficult, though, to get an adult into an inpatient psychiatric unit. And inpatient behavioral health is exactly opposite of medical. If you go to the ER, you're triaged, and the most severe gets treated quickest, right? You go right in, the heart attack goes in before the broken leg. It's exactly the opposite in behavioral health. The more severe and the more aggressive, hospitals can deny admission. And so they're the people that are getting left behind that will not get admitted by private hospitals because they don't have the staffing. They don't want to accept the liability for someone that's aggressive that might harm somebody at work. So it's very difficult sometimes to get the sickest people that need the inpatient the most into services. It's even worse and 10 times harder to get a child. There's less psychiatric inpatient beds for children. And then this is what the terrible crisis is right now. They've reduced our inpatient psychiatric beds for children at the state hospital, which is called Hawthorne. In the state, we have one psychiatric state hospital for all children. We used to have 170 beds for children back several years ago. It got cut back to 80 beds. Then it got cut back to 60. In the last couple of years, or last year, we've been at 44 beds. They just shut the hospital down because they're going to rebuild it. And so they moved them to another unit at Walter Reuther State Hospital for adults. They made a floor in children. And now we're at 30 beds for the entire state. If I have a child that is extremely aggressive and dangerous, there's times I can't even get them on the waiting list for the state hospital. We're in this all the time with DHS, probate court. Judges can't even get people into the state hospital. They're hoping to increase it again to about 40 beds until 2026. And then when they built this brand new hospital, the director was telling us, oh, it's gonna be the size of 4 Meyer stores. He's all excited, it's gonna be so big. We asked, how many beds will that increase us to? The maximum capacity is 80. So in the private hospitals, when we used to have an aggressive adult or an aggressive child or something, I could offer additional funding and say, I'll pay 1-to-1 staffing if you'll take this kid or you'll take this adult and we'll pay. Well, now with the workforce shortage, that doesn't even work. There's nothing I can do to get somebody in inpatient hospitalization. And I don't have any control over the way those hospitals are being managed or the struggles they are handling, but it truly is a crisis in the state. When you hear, and it's horrific, children are in the ER days and days and days waiting for placement, sometimes weeks. And they're being managed in the hospital. It's awful for the families. It's awful for the hospital staff. We send staff over there trying to help, relieve some of that pressure and the parents. So it truly is a crisis. And I don't know how it's going to change anytime soon. And even 2026, we get more beds, but that's less than half of what we used to have for capacity around the state. So that's just what I want to let you know, is there is a crisis, and I can do nothing about a kid sitting in an ER waiting for an inpatient psychiatric bed, other than trying to provide some staff to the ER to help manage the kid or give the parents a break so they can go home, take a shower, get something to eat, get some sleep, and come back. And that's about it. It's very scary that I have kids in the community that I know need to be in a higher level of care, and there's nothing I can do to get them there. So if you can, there's a brand new at the House of Representatives, a behavioral health committee. They've never had one before. We've had many of our people and directors there testifying before them, and they know there's a problem. So anything anyone can do, and the audience are there to help support and ring the alarm bells that we need something done for inpatient psychiatric help. Okay.
Anybody got any questions, Nina?
Birchwood at the hospital, that's still up and running, isn't it?
The substance use treatment program in my Michigan, that closed several years ago before the hospital closed. The Point East is the psychiatric unit. That's still running. They only take adults though.
Okay, that was my question. I thought it was only adults. I wasn't sure.
Only adults, and it's about a 16-bed unit. Usually they can take the capacity of 13 or 14 because they have to leave a couple of seclusion rooms if they need them.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Nice presentation.
I'm prior service with the Army, so obviously the Veterans Affairs piece I have an affinity for. So do you work with the hospital, the clinic, or should they not a hospital that's at the Harborside Mall? Do you work, because that's a medical facility, do you work with them providing crisis services for veterans?
Yes, but they have their own social workers and they have their own case managers and their own nurses.
Okay.
What we work with veterans are the ones because of mental illness were dishonorably discharged and they're not eligible for the veteran services. Okay. So we pick up that population of veterans. Okay. Oftentimes, if they have full services, they can go there, and we work with their social workers if they need them. But they do have the VA benefits; they can get treatment. We work with those that don't qualify for those services, but they serve their country, and sometimes they saw combat, and part of their discharge probably was mental illness. So,
thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Presentation.
Thanks, Nina.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Eric.
Afternoon. Today I'm in front of you looking for approval for a or an expense line item for an ERT helmet that needs to be purchased for our ERT member. I apologize. Our deputy who is assigned to ERT got a little ahead of himself, and he sought donations before he went through the proper process and getting this all lined up. So we did. So it's a ballistic helmet that he'll wear during ERT activities, which is an emergency response team, which is high risk warrants, high risk type activity. So we need to purchase this ballistic helmet. It's $1,400, just over $1,400. Like I said, he already received the donations. That's already been receipted in a revenue line item. We just need permission to have an expense line item so we can pay for the helmet.
Chairman, I think we all read the letter already, so we have a good understanding. I'll make the motion to approve that.
Kim, does there any, we need any numbers?
They're in the memo.
Okay,
Yeah, because I had provided the numbers to Sheriff Smith.
okay, good. Got a motion by Commissioner Osmer,
I'll support that.
support by Commissioner Francisco. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner LaLonde,
Yes.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco,
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky,
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye,
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes. Thanks, Eric. Sheriff. Pat Moran. Capital needs study.
Good afternoon. Appreciate you making time for us today. I know you have a very busy agenda, so we'll say this will be a brief but informative presentation. However, if you have questions along the way, please feel free to interrupt us. I want to make sure that we can address any of your items as we go. My name is Andy Fountain. I work for Plant Moran Cressa. With me today is Manny Herrera. And we also had another team member, David Goldman. Fortunately, he couldn't be here today. He sustained an injury, which has kept him on the sidelines. So we'll be filling in for him here today. Just a little background, Plant Moran Cressa is a full-service real estate consulting firm. We've been engaged to provide you with a capital planning and space needs assessment of 3 of your buildings and also the county fairgrounds property. We provided a condensed version of the reports that you received. I believe the deliverable, the draft deliverable to date is about 131 pages. So we tried to take that opportunity to condense this down and provide you with an overview here today. However, all of the information that we've gathered and the deliverable items will be transmitted to you at the conclusion of we'll talk about today an overview of our engagement, some of the activities that were completed. Look at some of the key observations. We'll go through a summary of the capital planning portion. We'll look at the space needs portion. Talk a little bit about some of the, I'll say, preliminary findings, and then some recommendations and next steps. So as I mentioned, we were engaged over a 6-month period to take a look at your courthouse, the annex location, probation and dispatch, and your fairgrounds properties, and really 2 different work streams that were included in our contract. One was capital planning, which is to essentially an attempt to, for lack of a better term, give you the best attempt at a crystal ball. So you can understand what your capital needs look like over a 10-year period. The other work stream that was included in our contract related to space needs, understanding in a perfect world on a 5-year projection, how much space would the county need to operate at the courthouse, the annex, and the probation dispatch. We did not include a space needs assessment for the fairgrounds property, as that was not required. Just a brief overview of the capital planning component. Our findings are based on visual observations. We look at your site conditions, the building envelope, your mechanical, electrical, And then we take that information and we try to forecast it over a 10-year period. So that way you can understand what are the things that I need to look at over the next 1 to 3 years, or what we consider to be priority 1 items. And then correspondingly priority 2 and priority 3 over a 4 to 6 or 7 to 10-year period. It's important to note, we also include escalation in the figures that we provided to you. And that's not necessarily on a linear line. We know that due to the pandemic, we've experienced record inflation over the last several years. So the costs you see will have, I believe it's a 7 to 10, I believe it's an 8% escalation for the priority 1 items. And then that escalation actually drops down for the priority 2 and 3. Again, attempting to give you a look ahead at what sort of capital outlay may be required to address the needs that have been identified. Again, the space needs analysis component, the intent there is to quantify what you have today and then again forecast into the future. So we looked at current level of utilization of your facilities. We talked with various departments that occupy the space to understand on a 5-year projection, are you intending to add positions? Are there efficiencies? Are there adjacencies that should be considered? Are there any other factors that would impact the amount of space that you would need to operate efficiently? And then we also had several interviews with key staff to verify and validate information that we received in a survey process that we conducted. On page 6 now, if you're following along on your attachment, just again, brief overview of our timeline. 6-month engagement. We kicked that off in February, and here we are today, July, to share our initial findings. I forgot to mention this kind of as we kick this off. I do want to emphasize that these are initial draft preliminary findings. The intent here today is to not necessarily dictate to you what's been found or what you're supposed to do. It's really meant to provide you with information so that you all can make informed decisions. And we want to make sure that we do receive any information or questions from you today so that we can calibrate the approach based on some of or any of the feedback that we have to provide. On page 7, I think you guys are more than familiar with where your properties are located, but just in case somebody picked this up out of the blue and wasn't familiar, they'll understand where the locations of the properties were that we studied. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Manny to kind of take you through the next few slides, and then I'll jump back in at the end for the recommendations and next steps.
Thank you, Andy. Good afternoon. We are on page 8 if anyone wants to follow along, but picking up on that, these are kind of an outline of the activities we've completed to date. For the capital planning component, again, we issued questionnaires and collected that information, reviewed it, toured about 130,000 square feet of your properties. Over the last 6 months, we've also had discussions with your facilities teams, just to, again, get any information that will inform our findings for that capital planning component. And I believe a draft report of our assessment was issued as draft for that part of the work. Similarly, for the space needs, we did also issue several staff surveys. We came and toured the facilities, interviewed about a dozen or so staff members from the county from various departments. And then we compiled information and we went back and had discussions with several members of the county departments that we spoke to. A draft report of that study was issued as well. It's about 58 pages long, but it's still a work in progress. Again, we do want to collect some feedback and make sure it gets reflected in here before we issue anything as final. At a high level, obviously some of the stuff you're already familiar with, but you're facing, portfolio with some aging facilities with various levels of priority. You've got departments that are, for lack of a better word, decentralized across multiple sites that, in a perfect world, it'd probably be best if they were closer together. Limited amenities, as seems to be the case with a lot of the historical things. If you were to take a modern facility, you'd have wellness rooms, you'd have bigger break rooms and things like that that could support your staff and ultimately your, community experience as well. There's accessibility limitations. Obviously, again, with these old buildings, inherently, you're going to have challenging egress for, people with disabilities, wheelchairs, that sort of thing. And then the building layouts is, again, you've done your best, it's working out, but some of these footprints are challenging. If you were to ask me if you can perhaps retrofit an existing facility, you could only take it so far, right? So there's limitations around that. And obviously, I don't have to mention this, but some of you came from across the street, and that's a safety concern in itself. And the capital planning report, you can expect a lot more detail than we'll be able to cover in this overview, but cost by priority, by category. Ultimately, we summarize it for you in terms of priority 1, 2, and 3. And then we also have individual building assessments with photos of each of the spaces that we were able to see. Page 12 has that information. It's a lot to digest. Again, these costs do include escalation. But you'll see there's 24 line items for each of the buildings that we kind of looked at the systems, the envelope, mechanical, electrical, everything that you would imagine would need to be maintained at some point. The space needs analysis summary report has also a lot more detail than we'll cover today, including how you're utilizing those spaces today. Some departments don't have enough space, some have more than they need. And all of that is captured there. Again, at a high level, right, there's a lot of nuance and things that are unique to each department. We also took, another approach to project the needs of each department over the course of the next 5 years. Beyond 5 years, it becomes a little difficult to understand where you might be headed, but we did our best to understand not just current needs, but also, where departments are growing over that time period. And then lastly, we did conceptualize, well, if you were to kind of have the opportunity to build something new, what could that look like? And we provided a sample space needs, budget planning benchmark, and a 36-month project delivery schedule. Again, all depending on ultimately if you decide to do something, that'll drive both cost and schedule, but it's nonetheless a potential option for you. Page number 14 has a little bit more detail in terms of comparing your courthouse annex, probation and dispatch, and then ultimately what a future facility could look like if you were to kind of consolidate staff and operations under one roof. You'll notice we use the term usable square feet, and then also there's references to, circulation and support space. Anytime you have a building, you're not going to use 100% of it. You need restrooms, you need circulation, lobbies, elevators, if you have more than one floor, that sort of thing. So the usable is essentially which each department would occupy as their home for that department. Some key takeaways in here for kind of where you might be headed is if we were to think about this in terms of consolidating your staff under one roof, potentially you're looking at about 64,000 square feet, of which 50% approximately would be actually usable. And again, if you think of a modern workplace or courtroom, you should have restricted and staff and public access areas. Right now, you may not have that across all of your buildings, but that's something that you would get, and it would drive down that usable percentage. But ultimately, what this looks like is if you were to take about 90 county staff across from 15 departments, it's about a 2 to 3 acre site, 64,000 square foot building. If we take, 450 a square foot up to maybe $550 a square foot, you're looking at approximately 29 to 35.4 million in investment. However, I will say, if you look at page 16, that's really driven by the strategy, right? If you probably don't need a building for 90 people, right? You have existing facilities, maybe it's less, maybe you do want to add more, but that number is obviously conceptual and based on the notion that you are consolidating and co-locating departments under one facility. This also provides a comparison of if you were to invest money strictly into upkeep of your existing portfolio over 10 years, that total between, what we call, I guess, your main campus here And then the fairgrounds, it's about 35 million. If you were to build something new, it's about 35 million, but also that excludes any investment into the fairgrounds location. If we go into a little bit more detail, and I won't hover on these because I think some of these are already covered and frankly, you already understand them. Courthouse, beautiful building. I really like that space. Obviously, with the building of that age, it's kind of difficult to meet all of the needs that we would want in a modern facility. Biggest issue is the kind of going back and forth across US 23. You know, if your courts have a accessibility need, you have to interrupt, displace maybe some of the things that happen in this building, in the courthouse annex, and vice versa. So again, some of those challenges are kind of highlighted here. Probation and dispatch, you know, there's some adjacency observations there with you know, MDOC being co-located with emergency operation services, 911. And also potentially there's a risk with the location of that building in a floodplain area, which frankly, we have not verified, but I think it is in that hazard path. Ultimately, perhaps there's a better place for that facility, but again, we're not making any conclusions today. We're just kind of giving you a glimpse of our conversations and understanding as we toured each of the spaces. So what does this mean? You know, as we start to think about next steps, there's some things to keep in mind ultimately. If you look at that report, the 100 and something page report, if you were to invest those dollars back into your facilities, right, you're solving part of the problem. You're maintaining your facilities, but you're not solving for inadequate daylighting or, you know, unavailability of public restroom access, you know, those kind of intangibles that general upkeep would address. Secondly, you know, the crossing US 23, both by staff and the community is a safety concern. If there was a strategy to eliminate that altogether, I think that would be a win. We talked about the optimizing of department adjacencies, right? If you have, you know, somebody paying a bill who's also doing some other service, you probably want those groups in the same vicinity so they're not having to travel across sites. And again, some of that is captured in the full space analysis report. And then you'd want to look at depth and funding, you know, ultimately, right? I'll close without saying you want to understand potential opportunities to do something with your available capital. And lastly, I'll emphasize that whatever you do decide to do, it can be calibrated to the realities and limitations of the county, both in terms of maintaining existing service quality and working within your limitations for funding that could be available. And then I'll let Andy kind of describe kind of next steps from here.
Sure. Thank you. So a lot of times, you know, we get to this part of the presentation when we're kind of did the data dump, and there's a lot to digest, and you get the look from everybody as the so what, Andy, so what, Plant Moran, so what do we do now that we have this information? And so we'd like to do it. These are simply recommended next steps. Certainly not obligated to do anything. We obviously would like to your feedback. If not today. Certainly we can work with the county administrator to receive any questions and provide you clarification or calibrate any of the items that you may be willing to share. One of the items that we did talk about with Mary Catherine was, you know, we understand the capital needs associated with the fairgrounds location, but are there other options that could be considered for that location and that piece of property? And so there could be an opportunity for you to take a next step on that location to do a market analysis or a highest and best use assessment to understand if we were to relocate fairgrounds to another location, what sort of opportunities may exist at the current location from a development perspective or an alternative use. And that's something that we could help you with if you felt that it was necessary. Again, moving forward into the courthouse locations and the annex dispatch, you know, a couple of items that we would think would make sense. And with the information that we provided you here today, the space needs assessment primarily, understanding that there's about 64,000 square feet that's needed. we would recommend that you look at a specific space and site program for that 64,000 square feet. And what I mean by that is, and I'll just use this as an example, perhaps the county would like to study and understand what would it take to put an addition onto your existing courthouse to have, one site where you can co-locate all of your departments and offer an efficient and experience for not only your staff, but for the residents of Alpena County. How much space would that actually look like? Is it really 64,000, or are there opportunities for consolidation? How much site would you need? We mentioned it's about 2.5 acres for that 64,000 square feet. So you have an existing facility. How much more room would you need? How much more development would need to take place on that property? We could put together a program, if you will, for both those site and space requirements, and then match that up with a budget and a conceptual schedule, so you can understand what's my commitment from a financial perspective and also a time commitment. There are other alternatives, looking at, different construction options. As I mentioned, in addition, that there are others. You could renovate the facilities. You could look at perhaps, if you wanted to get crazy and build a whole new facility, that's always an option, although maybe cost prohibitive. We can also help you understand and match up any funding requirements and opportunities that may exist in the marketplace. I mentioned highest and best use assessment. We've got great relationships with the MEDC and other developers that may be able to help induce some activity if you felt like that was necessary. And ultimately, moving forward to help you develop an implementation plan to address the needs that have been identified here today. And with that, that takes us to the end of our presentation. Again, I thank you for the time today, and happy to field any questions you might have.
Does anybody have, is this draft plan, it's just a draft, it's not made public yet?
I mean, it was included in the materials, but it is not a final report at this.
Just a recommendation, as long as we're talking about security, crossing the road is important, but I think also giving a floor map of where the judge's chamber is to the general public, maybe not the best idea. We might want to remove those maps when we go public.
So you're in your experience, obviously you talked about the courthouse and you mentioned that what a nice facility it is, built many years ago. It's a historic landmark.
Right. What
What has been your experience in working and modifying and adding on to those type of historic landmarks? I mean, can you, if necessary, can you offer advice and a way ahead for that, if that were a course of action we pursue?
Certainly. Historical buildings certainly creates or provide some limitations when it comes to providing, ADA access and other updates. What we'd recommend, or what we've done in the past, is engage or assist you with the engagement of an architect that would specialize in historical buildings, and let them do an analysis of the information that we've provided to let you or provide you with information to understand where are the opportunities and then where are the limitations. And the reason why we recommend that you work with an architect is mainly due to the licensing issues related to their services. We're not registered architects, although Manny is an architect by trade. We don't practice architecture. We don't practice engineering.
Okay.
When it comes to code and things like that, we'd want to make sure that you have information from a licensed architect.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Take your information and move forward with it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So yes, as you all digest the vast amount of information that is contained in there, if you have any comments, questions, just get them to me and I will forward them on to our Plant Moran team and they can respond.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, recycling. Cindy, Ken, who else we got?
Laura's here, Stan's here.
Could almost have an MMMA meeting.
Today we have three things kind of going on at the same time. One is the ask for the $5 increase in the surcharge. One is Recycling 101, and I've sent you a memo and kind of tried to hit on highlights of recycling. So you might have questions, and I'm more than happy to answer any of your questions. And then we'll have Lisa Salso will give a presentation on the deck for the new facility. So she'll give you an overview of where we are and where we're headed. So I'm going to start off by reading the memo that I sent you so that everyone is aware of what we're going to talk about today. So thank you for the opportunity on behalf of NEMA to address all things recycling today. We look forward to answering any questions you may have. We are transitioning from Northeast Michigan Council of Government, NEMCOG, as our fiduciary. They have been our fiduciary for many years under the former Recycling Board and have almost completed that process. We're almost done with that. At the Commissioner's request, the former Recycling Board transitioned to an authority as of January 1st, 2023. Recycling is part of the county's waste management plan has operated independently since 2011, when each township and the city signed a local intergovernmental agreement. The commissioners approved them, and the surcharge was set at $10 at that time per resident. Businesses are excluded. Under Public Act 1989, 138, we operate under the surcharge that can be up to $25 per year. Each year, the agreements had to be approved by each entity until 2017, when we changed the contract to include the agreements only needed to be approved if there was a change. And in 2017, the Recycling Board returned to the Alpena Board of Commissioners and asked for an increase to $20 per year per household because of rising costs, and it was approved. We are back to ask for an increase in the surcharge from 20 to 25 per year per household. Each entity has its respective boards approve the increase, and you have those signed documents in your packet. Prices and operating costs have increased significantly, especially over the last few years, and income has not kept up. We are subject to the same issues as all businesses have faced recently. The price of hauling material went up when the business bought up local haulers, and we had to think outside of the box. To be able to provide recycling, we bought a used truck and contracted with a private company to help us haul our bins back to the facility. Prices under the old hauler were $70 per run, and we now pay $135 per run in the city and $225 for runs outside of the city. As of January 1st, we have employees instead of contract workers. We have gas, utilities, repairs, insurance, equipment purchases, and all those add to cost. And our fixed income has been the same since 2017. In 2011, we processed 381 bins, and fast forward to 2022, we processed 1,009 bins. Our facility is woefully insufficient. If anyone's been out there, I'm more than happy to take anyone on a tour. You can see how we work. And the amount of material we put through that facility is pretty amazing when you see it. With the new facility, we can process more material locally and become a hub for the entire region. And that's our goal. This will bring money and jobs to the area. The price of commodities we send to market is part of our operating budget, but it's unstable. Last year, material prices were the highest in my time on the Recycling Board, and it was an anomaly. But it helped us as we transitioned to hauling our own materials to the facility. For example, prices last year to this year, cardboard at this time last year was $175 per ton, and this year it's $70 per ton. Last year, we were able to get $130 per ton for paper, and this year it's $40 per ton. Tin last year was $200 per ton, and now it's $125 per ton. Plastics are down, depending on the type, anywhere from 2 to 5% from last year. If we can't make ends meet, we will be forced to close the facility toward the end of the year until the surcharge money comes in January. We never want to do this, but it could be something that the NEMA board faces. Cleanup days for household goods and electronic equipment are not something that is required or part of the surcharge. The benefit for the area and the county is immeasurable. Until this year, we took money out of the surcharge, but this year we knew our budget couldn't sustain it with rising costs. We raised the funds through grants and donations, and the county participated in that as well, and we appreciate that. And each entity, including the county, contributed money. We would like to thank everyone for helping us to provide these valuable programs to our community. It helps to keep items out of the ditches and gives residents a place to take things that they don't know what to do with. We also run a transfer station. We purchase a point of sale system to separate all of the items we take in to ensure we are charging enough to cover the disposal costs. We didn't have this opportunity under NEMCOG, and we think it's a good business decision that will help us do better with tracking. NEMA is working with Wholesome Alpena to provide glass recycling, and we have been working on this project for probably about the last year, and we've had some hiccups along the way, but Wholesome can take our glass that we currently can't take at our facility and use it in making their product. So it's a project that we hope by the end of the year will be here. But this is a perfect example of a circular economy. We have a product someone can use in the production of their product, and this is truly recycling at its best. This model keeps things out of the landfill and puts them back into use because landfills are monitored forever. There's a never-ending cost to garbage. So based on what I just read, we're happy to answer any questions. And I'll just throw in our budget last year. What we spent to run the facility was $624,000. This year we budgeted for $630,000, just so you kind of know where we are. The surcharge, we take in $305,000.
The surcharge with the proposed increase of 305, that's if it's, okay.
That's what it is currently.
Thank you. Okay.
Proposed increase would increase by about a little, it's about $72,000. The increase would be, there's like 13,500 households.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions? Cindy, anybody?
I love that you're sending the glass over to Lafarge Wholesome. I really like
We're also
that.
going to partner with them on tires too. We have to get that kicked off, but we will partner with tires is a big issue, especially in a community with lots of farmland. There are plenty.
I can just mention, today alone, I'm taking in 10 mattresses. I mean, that's service we're providing to people, residents helping the county. 10 mattresses are gonna go over to Traverse City. They're gonna eventually end up being recycled. You know, like the box springs, the springs and the metal, that all gets recycled. And then the wood is chopped up and that's up to by a Home Depot with the colored, for your driveway, I mean, around your flowers and that stuff.
Yeah.
That's where that stuff is made. And the mattresses that can be recycled are all recycled. I mean, it all costs money.
Quick question.
Services.
Good job.
We
Covered everything.
we have the letters from the townships surrounding us, but there has been discussion in the past. I'm just wondering, has there been any efforts to outreach to surrounding counties that'll be taking it to also get them to buy in?
Yes, and there is a county, and Lisa will touch on that. There's a county that's coordinating their recycling program with the opening of our new facility.
Nice, okay.
We're lining those things up. It's going to happen.
And I know with the landfill, with Oscoda and Montmorency, we have to do the plan for our plans. So I think they're probably on board with us, be up there, so.
One other question, Chairman, if I can.
Go ahead.
We used to have an opt-out option. Is there still, is that in place? It's no.
The county commissioners eliminated the opt-out and
17.
it was.
With the last resolution, well, actually 18 was when the last resolution was signed. That opt-out was not in there. So again, depending on what you guys, the county board of commissioners would do with the new resolution, I would strongly advise you review the resolution that's currently in place in case there's any changes to it that you may want to.
And then I guess just a follow-up question on that was, and Chairman, you probably can answer this, or Brenda, one of the two that have been here for a while. Was that removed because we had so many people taking part in it, or was it just kind of seen as unnecessary because we didn't have
I
anybody?
think my understanding was at the time That way you give them a set amount of money they're gonna get. They didn't know from year to year if who was opting out and who was in.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was also put on like the city and Charter Township. It was up to us to, it was taking an awful lot of time from our staff. When when you have to do the forms and stuff for 400 to 500 people, most of the smaller townships, they might have 5 to 10. That's the highest. But in the city and in the Charter Township, we process quite a few.
I recall the people were very upset to think that they couldn't opt out of it. And also, you took it away from the military, retired personnel. Well, they have to pay.
That's what's in your current commissioner's resolution. That was never in the intergovernmental agreements to not charge people who have a poverty exemption and a veterans exemption. That was never part of the intergovernmental agreement. That was put in place by the Board of Commissioners under the resolution. So if you guys wanted to change that or leave it in, again, that's why I said I would strongly recommend you review the resolution that's currently in place.
And if I can, the surcharge isn't a tax. It's collected on the tax bill because that's how we collect it. But it's not something that can be waived. It's not a tax. So even if there's a poverty exemption like in the city, when we do our poverty exemptions, we tell them you still have to pay the surcharge. And we've never had somebody say, oh, we're not doing that. That is a charge that cannot be waived.
Why do you send that through the county taxes? It's costing them. Why aren't you sending that yourselves? Why are you using the
That's way
county?
it's set up under the law. It's attached on the left.
And it would also cost more postage. I mean, it'd be another thing to send out, just like we bill special assessments on the tax bills. They're not taxed, they're special assessments for the road or the water assessment. It's just included in the tax bill.
It just sounds to me.
Sending out an additional bill.
It just sounds to me like you really need money to get this going because you're taxing and charging everybody that you can.
Okay, and
There's no breaks given to anybody.
it's not for the new facility. This is for our general operating costs for what we're currently doing. And yes, we do need the money. We had to take on all of our employees as employees. They're no longer contract workers. Under NEMCOG, they were contract workers. So we have all the expenses that come with that. We had to give raises because if we didn't give raises, just like you guys, we would have lost our employees and we can't afford that. We're doing our own hauling. It's cheaper than paying the current person to do it. There's still a cost to that. It's expensive. I mean, it's expensive to do.
Yeah,
this.
because you've been buying a lot of equipment and
We have to.
so, and you've raised your prices also, haven't you?
For the
When people bring in.
Patrons?
Yeah.
yes,
We're charging what it costs us to get rid of it, Brenda. Our hands are tied on it.
we have to cover our
We can do.
costs.
So what makes you think that you can build a new building if you can't maintain what you got right now by raising everything?
Because we can take in more material. We can't, we're maxed out on the material we can take in. There is a lot more material out there that we could capture that we just don't have the room.
I mean, the county would love to expand too. I don't know where we're gonna get the money.
Oh, you're gonna also have people from Ramsey and Oscoda County bringing their recyclables to Alpena. So you're gonna probably double or triple your intake, what you're doing now.
What happens if somebody else starts the facility?
And at
Some
least,
big contractor, some comes in and builds a recycling facility. I mean, you can't stop them, can you?
No,
No, can't.
right. And at
Then
least
your facility would be in real trouble. Then.
Oh, it would be, right.
Waste management or
to cover those.
somebody come in and build like,
Well, the other one came in and bought up.
what about the landfill the same way? What if they,
can't touch the landfill.
what if they build another
You
one?
can't.
Is there a law that says they can't?
There are 3 counties.
Yeah. Okay.
We have our 3 counties, of landfill, all the waste guys go to the landfill.
Has to go there,
Has to go there.
no matter who collects it, right?
Who collects it?
So GFL has to bring it to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I understand that you need a new facility. I mean, I've been to what we have now. I've helped donate my time there. I understand that. But to trying to get money from the public, which they're strapped like everybody else. I know $5 don't cost much. It is not much money. To us, maybe. But, okay, so you go cap it out at 25, then you're gonna come back and gotta raise it. You know, we just, that 25 a year is just, we gotta raise it. I mean, the DEA's coming back and wanting more money from us. You're gonna come back and want more money from us. Where's county supposed to get all this money? We can't even pay our own bills.
It's been 7 years since we asked for the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but another 7 years from now,
Yeah, 25 to cap, or you can't go in.
they're gonna come back and wanna raise the cap.
No,
Something.
state law.
Well, we told the DDA we weren't giving them any more either, and they're coming back.
So just, so if I may ask, Chair, just for my understanding, the extra $5 is to increase your operating fund to be able to maintain and sustain the capacity you have at the current facility. The new facility in its design and intent is to be able to increase your capacity, to be able to take in more, to generate more revenue is how it, so I just want to make sure I understand how this is divided out, that I'm thinking I'm on the right track.
Okay.
So once they do that, well, then they're gonna need more equipment because they're bringing on more. And they're not gonna be able to get along with what they got.
As we go through this process, just so everyone knows, and Elisa will touch on all of the fundraising we've done for the new facility. We're about 75% funded, and we've done that by asking grants, by getting, we've done that. We haven't asked, the county has given us the property and $500,000 toward the new facility. The rest of the millions that we're bringing in, we're working hard to do that. We have another grant out there, an EPA grant, that's being reviewed. So we've made it to the review process. If that grant is, if we get that grant, we're there, and we can start building.
Which I wouldn't expect nothing less from you, to go out and try to get it. Right.
But this is an opportunity. The recycling is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. The state is going to.
Part of the solid waste management plan, so it's got to be.
And more people want to do it. We're actually behind the curve on recycling. I mean, we're trying to catch up, become the hub for northern Michigan because nobody up here is doing it. The material that's going to the landfill is ridiculous. We can capture that. We can send it back to market. There's opportunities for businesses to spin off because we have a facility up here. It's all good. We're getting grants for equipment. We are doing the hard work to make this happen and make it successful. Don't bet against us.
Oh, I'm not, but as Mr. Commissioner LaHaye said, other people can come in and do it. But your money. And I already know one company that's bought up all of Alpena, I think, on there. Collecting.
I would recommend that we have that 2017 or 2018 resolution passed out to each, sent to each commissioner, and look at it and bring it back to finance.
Right, so I did not include a newly drafted resolution because I wasn't sure, I wanted to make sure that this was something that the board wanted to move forward with. But yes, that would be the next step, would be to bring a newly drafted resolution to you, and certainly could attach the 2017 resolution to it. And then that would be.
Okay, just send it the.
So that they have both.
Yeah, we have.
The old one and the new proposed.
Yeah, can we make sure the old one's in there for me?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When you get the newly drafted one, you would get this one too. So if you would like me to go ahead and draft that resolution and bring it for approval at the Finance Ways and Means Committee meeting, I can certainly do that.
And if I may ask just one more question, Mr. Chairman. So, and again, to Commissioner Fournier's point, the request, the ask right now is to increase by $5 to $25, which is what the current state legislature, i.e. law, has said that we can go to. So $25 is max under the current law. But there's nothing to be said that the state legislature can't change the law in the future and say, yeah, you know what, 25 is old law, so we can now make it whatever number's 50. I just throw a hypothetical. So that can be changed, but not you, the authority, but by the state legislature.
And the other way that you can operate a recycling facility, and just so you know, is by going and asking for a millage. If we ask for a millage, if at any time we did that, then we can capture businesses. Right now, we can't.
Okay.
So we just do residents. Residents means that if you have 40 acres and there's a house there, it's one $20 surcharge. It's not on each parcel. There's a house, it's $20. If there's 3 houses on 40 acres, it's $20 off. It's not per person.
But if they own 3 or 4 parcels,
If they own 3 or 4 buildings that are livable, the resident description is basically a functioning kitchen and bathroom where someone could function for 24 hours. So if you have a cottage and you have, cottage on a lake and a hunting camp and a house, you're going to pay 3 separate recycling surcharges. So it's, when you say it's not per parcel, no, if there's not a resident on the parcel, but if you own more than one parcel. And same thing with your apartment buildings. If it has 40 units, you're paying 40 recycling charges, not 1.
And the landlords can decide what to do with that. They can charge it back to their residents. They can just offer it or put it in the rent. That's for them to decide. We really don't have pushback from landlords.
Is it on your social property?
And residential.
Businesses.
Business pay an extra, I pay a fee to
We have a
recycle.
program that we implemented.
Yeah.
Businesses can recycle and use our bins for $300 per year.
Yeah.
So anything they have, they can put in the bins. They pay that.
A lot of them don't pay and
They
use it.
use it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering how you'd regulate that.
Mine was just due, I was waiting for Stan to show up.
We've talked about that in terms of enforcement, which continues to be an issue with the NEMA board and, a lot of other counties that have recycling have moved to cameras. And so that will certainly be something that we think about moving forward.
Presqu'île has cameras on there.
Enforcement, because we get a lot of stuff dropped in the bins that is not recycled.
I drop off stuff and I see people throwing stuff in there, I'm going.
Right, but it can remove an amazing amount from your garbage, in terms of reducing your garbage that then you have to pay for. So, especially once we are able to recycle glass, that'll remove a huge volume from people's trash.
Interesting.
So I don't have a question, but I have a comment. With my work, I travel a lot all over the state and other states. And if a program like this were to fall apart, I've been to communities where they don't have this, and these mattresses are gonna go somewhere. It's gonna be in their front yard, or your front yard, or her front yard, or the tires are gonna be laying places. There's a lot of benefit to this, not just a tremendous amount of material it keeps out of the landfill, but it keeps our community looking much better than it could.
On the side of my property in Presqu'île, somebody did a dump and I just happened to be out in the woods with my puppy. And I came around and actually caught them and did stop them, but I'm sure they went down the road and did a dump on somebody's property. I mean, that's where you want to avoid that. It ends up in the lakes, honestly. A lot of that stuff, somehow or another, it does end up in the lakes.
Okay,
You can ask Stan, but in my township, and I'm probably one of the only ones that do it, I hauled in 2 truckloads of tires one year that I dug out of the ditches.
Yeah.
And TVs that people just throw out and I bring in and he takes them. But
Last question, it's gonna be really simple, I promise. Just if you got the $5 surcharge, approximately how much more does that bring in?
That's about 72.5 in that area.
Thank you.
Oh, I have it wrong.
And then Elisa has an update.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say, Lisa.
Okay. Lisa, you ready?
Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yes. So you can see. Can you hear?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm Elisa Seltzer from RRS, Resource Recycling Systems, and I also have with me on Zoom Annie White, also from RRS. We've both been working on this project with the county and the authority for some time now. And I just want to share an update. Cindy's given a really great sort of like recent update, what's going on. I wanted to go back just a couple generations and just recognize that in our grandparents' generation, that they really didn't waste anything. I don't know if anyone on the county board remembers when milk showed up in refillable glass bottles, but definitely, food scraps, they didn't go in the garbage, they didn't go to landfill, they went to the dog or the chickens or the pig. Back then, just a couple generations, everything was reused or repurposed. There was pride in that frugality and in conserving resources for their next best use. What has happened, that waste nothing culture really shifted to what is called a linear economy. In the 50s and 60s, when there was lots of manufacturing of plastic goods and then single-use plastics, was at the same time that when landfills were plentiful and they were cheap, and it became really, really easy to throw things out. And so that sort of emphasis on conservation kind of dissipated. And what's happened with all this recognition of, plastic pollution in the lakes and the oceans and all this waste is there's coming back full circle, literally to what's called a circular economy, making efforts to keep all materials in use, whether it's reusing, repairing, recycling, but keep materials in circulation so that they can become new products, new packaging, which not only reduce waste, but reduces pollution and saves energy. Some of these efforts and systems are really quite straightforward, and you've had a really strong system in Alpena County for years, which has now, reached its limit in capacity. Providing access to recycling with drop-off sites and collection services, processing of those recyclables so that they can make it by the truckload to manufacturing facilities, and then ensuring their end markets eager to receive that recycled feedstock to make into new products and packaging. One of the things Cindy didn't mention is that the mills and processing, the manufacturing plants in Michigan and in the Great Lakes region really, really want your recyclables. They want more recycling to happen in communities and more processing to get them into bales, onto trucks, and to their facilities, because they run more profitably, more efficiently, can have more staff and benefit their communities and our Michigan economy. So there's a lot of interest in improving these systems and growing them, primarily in rural areas in the state. And the stars are aligned. I just like to share with everyone I talk to that, the time is now. Eagle at the state has priorities to improve recycling systems in the state. There's a lot of federal funding. There's a lot of industry and trade association interest, which is represented in some of the grants and funding sources that have come through for this project. There's really strong interest among your residents and businesses to have more access to recycling programs and services. People really get it that they want to do the right thing. They don't want to waste things and throw them out if they don't have to. And now is the time when funding's available. However, it's not only funding. This project is also aligned with the state's plan to call for material management plans this fall. This is what used to be called solid waste management plans, and they were required every 10 years with a 5-year update for decades. There has not been a call for plans for some time because the state has been trying to rework them into materials management plans. When that call for plans happens, and we expect the Eagle director to announce it to both counties and council of governments and planning agencies on September 25th, that's going to start the clock where there will be requirements of counties and there will be funding available. NEMCOG has historically provided this planning service for your COG. Once that call for plans is announced on September 25th, you will then be faced with a determination. Do we want to do our own materials management plan, or do we, like we have in the past, join with NEMCOG and do a regional plan? The really cool thing is that there's going to be funding coming in with this planning process for at least 3 years, if not 5. And one of the carrots that the state is including with this planning process, whether it's the county alone or a regional effort, is that once the plan is done, those funds can be used for implementation. It can actually go towards capital, towards operating expenses, but there will continue to be state funds available to further your effort. So developing this facility now is really perfect timing to accrue all those benefits. So this recycling facility, as you already heard from Cindy, will not only benefit Alpena County, but the entire region. Jobs and resources will come back into the communities. You know, we all know if these things aren't recycled, they end up in landfills, and there's a cost to that. So with recycling, yes, there are costs, but money comes back in the value of the materials. The increasing volumes by bringing in other counties' materials is actually going to reduce costs per ton. It's going to provide sharing of capital and operating costs. And you go to any facility anywhere in the country, and they'll tell you more volume is better for your overall bottom line in terms of efficiently managing these facilities. So this is just a reminder. Thank you all for helping secure this parcel number 20 at the airport. This is the layout for construction, which both ensures space for future expansion and also right sizes the road construction for current needs. It also, this parcel serves as an anchor for future development on adjacent parcels. Not only in terms of utilities, which this is going to like get utilities there, but also can serve as a lure for end market innovation opportunities to co-locate with this facility. Here's a zoom in of the building site. And I have another zoom into the blue section for the proposed building. But there is room to expand to the left. The actual building will be designed to actually expand it out if volume exceeds expectations, or year 10, it's time for another expansion. The grayed out area to the right of the building represents truck movement, and all the dotted lines to the right on the map are proposed layout for future comprehensive drop-off center, household hazardous waste, and other associated service opportunities. There will be grants and funds for these kind of like capital expenses to get these, buildings or sheds or whatever they are up to provide those services. But as Stan said, those mattresses aren't going away. Way better to recycle all those components. The landfills don't want mattresses, but many other materials like tires and many other things. So that's all future planning. Here is the preliminary building arrangement. The equipment proposed helps keep processing efficient, minimize the building space needed, and reduces capital cost. It's a circular sorting system. There's a 2-ram baler, room for tipping, as well as for the baled materials, 3 loading docks you can see in the lower right, and trucks that are tipping loose material would be in the upper right of that building. These are just some of the materials that can be taken in a future comprehensive drop-off. There's very strong interest in developing this, what would be a second phase. We're not focusing on it now, but just wanted to share that there are many, many opportunities in the future. This slide has a lot going on, but I just want to demonstrate that the modeling has been done to map out future tons of recyclables that are anticipated with regional collaboration, as well as the changing feedstock sourcing and the funding landscape over time. It was already mentioned, Iosco County is actively planning to collaborate, and their participation provides economies of scale. So it saves your community costs, help cover capital and operating costs in the future. Cindy's already mentioned that commodity revenues, the sale of the cardboard, the sale of the paper and plastics, will never cover the full cost of any program. But a diversified funding portfolio that both includes that PA 138 fund, which is super helpful, hoping also for an MOA landfill surcharge to be adopted, and fees for service where relevant, will provide a durable and resilient funding approach. So this facility does rely on increasing material volume, both locally and regionally. And there's lots of opportunity to grow recycling within the county once the SMRF is developed. So really, again, Cindy has mentioned this, but here you can see it on screen. About 70% of the capital funds have been secured to date. So your like anchor funding of $500,000, which is really instrumental in going after these other funding sources. There is now $2.7 million in federal appropriations, $1 million from the state. Carton Council and Food Packaging Institute are trade associations that really want to invest in recycling solutions in communities. They've provided another $30,000. We are waiting to hear from the EPA for this $1.9 million grant later this summer. And then Closed Loop Partners, they're a loan instrument. They will provide between $500,000 and $1 million in low or zero interest loan over a 8 to 10 year repayment plan for any gap. So we are, as well as another $500,000 where we have other grants underway. So there is a gap. The EPA grant will close it, but if there's any remaining, Closed Loop Partners can stand in with a loan, which has been modeled into the cost model. So we are really close. Here is a timeline. This is a broad brush timeline, obviously. We have a very detailed one. We're working towards zoning and permit approvals over the next couple of months. We will complete the funding package by the end of the summer, and then we'll be working on site building and equipment procurement in the third quarter of this year and the first quarter of next year. We look to break ground next spring on site construction and be fully operational with the building up equipment in it by June of 2025. So that's just a really quick view. And really our next steps, you know, again, this is a broad brush, but we are working on securing the capital funding, complete the process to secure the other operational funding mechanisms, continue supporting drop-off expansion in the region, which will help fund the operating costs of this project. And just, you know, in closing, a reminder that this is really being driven by a very large unmet need for recycling and, you know, recent capacity issues in Alpena, but recycling in Northern Michigan as well. There's very strong support by residents and businesses. And there's no question that operating costs will improve, not just for the new facility, but also a reduction in collection costs. The way collection is happening now with old trucks and with subcontracted support and hauling all the way to Emmett County, because you do not have the capacity at the current facility, the collection costs are going to be way more efficient once you have new capacity and a new truck. So, so that's all I have right now. Glad to take questions and thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Thank you.
I have signed all the intergovernmental agreements from all the townships. Those are all done. So
I will send around the surcharge agreement for everyone to review.
no other questions, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Cindy.
Thank you.
Ben? Okay, we have reports of special or ad hoc committees, facilities. Travis.
Lots really to talk about. We talked about the upcoming fair. Still working with the fair board on a generator situation to try to help offset that huge electrical bill that comes with that.
And charge.
Yeah, the 1 week of the fair. You know, our tenants are obviously in the new building here, the 7-Eleven building. That's going well. They got a lot of repairs done out at the airport with the HVAC. While the airport was down, those are all complete. Pool repairs were done. That's back up and running. We accepted a bid, came in under bid quite a bit to get the driveway fixed at the main courthouse. Also, getting the driveway fixed out at the, not the mental health building, but
DH Health.
District Health.
Yep.
Yep. Other Other than that, nothing really significant.
Any questions from Travis?
Just as a quick note, I know you guys probably have heard, but 725, the Crosswinds runway at the airport did reopen on Sunday. They are still on track to reopen the main runway August 1st.
The main runway is going to open when?
August 1st
August 1st, and the side runways.
is open. It opened on Sunday.
Okay, John's not here. Anybody have any, on that committee, have anything?
Just a couple things. We had the animal control officer gave her first monthly report on activities within animal control and of course at the animal control shelter. It was the first opportunity to do that. So we appreciated the information that was provided. We gave her a little more of our intent. And she's going to come back again next month to update us and continue to update us. But we're working on what information is desired and needed. So, but I thought it was a pretty good first opportunity to present to the Court and Public Safety Committee, and Commissioner Osmer is also on that. One of the other things we talked about is, and that's why Kim Elke is not here, is I asked them to provide a briefing from Motorola to find out what's going on with our brand new tower that's been installed here and the fact that it's not operational. And just to put the bottom line up front, they're working on it now. They went through a number of different excuses and reasons as to why it hasn't been working. They're doing tests now. Their expectation is by 23 August to have the new tower fully operational. Commissioner Osmer, anything else you want to add from that meeting?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Personnel.
Just a couple of quick things. One thing I think we covered at the last finance board meeting that we had, we did finalize the department head handbook rather. Past that, we are working with Steve Musso on trying a different approach to get more participation and completion of the Know Before program training for users of our email, and basically just knowing what to watch for to help make our system a little bit more secure. And then other than that, we're just working on the evaluation for the county administrator, which we hope to have done at the next meeting.
Any questions, Jesse?
Oh, I did have one other item. We also discussed insurance plans for married couples who are within the county. Although one notation, I would like to revisit that eventually, just because some other things popped up. But other than that, nothing else.
Economic Development Committee, we had a presentation from Ann Gentry and Cindy Johnson from the city and Mike Mahler from the Target. And they gave us a presentation about their concerns where their agreement wasn't long enough for them to move forward to EDA for 5 years. They're looking to get us up to 30 years, but that'll be in your packet come finance, the information. That Steve Gelski given future airport use planning. They're going to start cutting 300 feet out from the fence all the way around the facility, and all the trees inside the facility will be cut down. This for animals and bird strikes. So they're clearing all the trees and it's getting done for nothing. Bobby Lumbering is going to do all that for nothing. Just you're going to take the material. Presque Electric's going to put 2 charging stations, electric charging stations out at the airport for the new electric cars, I guess. And then they're also talking about taking, they got an old workout. I think that was one of the ones that crashed there.
It's being cannibalized and it's non-mission capable, so they're going to put it on a pedestal and it looks nice on entry.
So there's, because of the because of all the money we had from the COVID thing to the airport was taken away from us to put into the runway. The 2 runway piles are being back ordered till 2025. So other than that, there's some other things you can look through on the report. But if anybody got any questions, we can go over that. Any questions on it? Okay. Robin, you're gonna take the DDH 4?
I am. There was some discussion with the environmental health director, Kevin Prevost. I guess it's been a little bit of a hot topic, whose responsibility is to pick up the dead animals along the roads. The road commission is unable to do that anymore because of state governance, that it's out of their scope. And the DNR is stating it's a state responsibility. So that's actually like still going head to head right now. When there's an update, I'll let you know, but that is why everyone's seeing quite a few more dead animals on the road that aren't getting moved. I think this is really important to touch on. I wasn't aware of this. There is an ACC drone program. It's an all weekend long commitment. And at the end of it, once you attend it, you receive a free drone. And then you actually get a certification so you could fly it professionally and get paid for that service. Whereas if you don't have that certificate, you're unable to do that because of the FAA. So this is a great program. It's literally free through a Michigan Works $1,000 grant. If anybody's interested in that, I can always send that information on, but you would contact Dawn Stone. And they offer these classes. It's a small number, but they offer 2 of those classes a month. I thought it was also worth noting that there was some CARES Act money that was left over that was going to get pulled back to the federal level if it wasn't used by September 30th. And they have been having some issues across all the counties with employee retention. So what they did was they built employee retention program stipend, and it went, which I thought that was fantastic, that they did something like that. And I know the staff actually spoke up that it actually was very important to them, and they really appreciated that. If anybody was terminated during that last month before the stipend was going to be distributed, they were ineligible. Also, any of the new employees were deemed ineligible, but after that, they went by years of service. And then I thought it was really interesting that Denise Bryan actually left herself off, and we amended it and made sure she was included in that. She just wanted to make sure that there was enough stipends for all of the staff, and she wasn't worried about herself, but that was resolved, and then that was approved. That's all.
Brenda, got anything else?
No, she did a very good job. Robin likes it.
Commissioner Fournier.
You're welcome.
Okay, fair board, you just talked about that a little bit. Have us?
Yeah, and honestly, that's
Oh,
really it.
excuse me, there was something else. I didn't mention that District Health 4 building in Atlanta.
Oh, yes. So unfortunately, we were just notified, actually this morning, it was in an email that the district health, their roof collapsed, and they are going to be shut down temporarily until there's repairs made. Until then, they're going to operate out of the Alpena facility.
And Sheboygan.
And Sheboygan, split between. And then we will help our neighbors as much as we can, and be a little crowded, I'm sure, but I mean, that does happen until they can resolve that issue and get the building back up and running. So we will give an update on that next month. I think that's important to touch on that. So I'll make sure that gets done.
Sorry.
Thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you very much.
And really nothing new for the fair. The fair's coming up quick. We talked about the power bill generator situation. We did have discussions about the tenants out front. I think all of us would love to see them not there, especially for Fair Week, but I don't know what kind of ulterior options that we have. I don't know. I get a lot of calls about that. I said I shouldn't have opened my mouth like Bert and my constituents not reaching out to me, but that changed with my comment. That is the only thing that I've heard about is the tenants that are less than desirable to look at in passing with their belongings all over and whatnot.
We are paying, right?
Yes.
Right.
They're not paying.
Their sites are paid.
Our churches.
Oh.
Yeah. Which, certainly don't want to discount an unfortunate situation, but it would be nice if we could move it out of the eye of the public to somewhere else. You know, especially with Fair Week coming up, it's certainly going to be a bigger topic as we get closer. I don't know if anybody has any ideas, you know.
But being their sites are being paid for, we really don't have an option.
There is sites on the back of the track,
Yeah, but
but I believe those are nice ones, right?
that's prime.
They are, and I would be very cautious about saying that only certain people can rent certain sites.
Yeah.
Do they have to move during Fair Week or do you stay there?
There's a certain block of sites that are reserved for the fair during Fair Week. And anyone who is on those sites are told when they rent those sites, that they have to move during Fair Week. So there is a certain block, but it's not those front sites that are right. And it's tough because they're right along.
Not the sites right.
11th. Yeah.
11th Avenue, right?
Do we have any we do have an annual camp host there.
We don't have a camp host. We do have a manager. Yeah.
Maybe we put some kind of ordinance in place where you can only stay at the fairground campground for no more than 30 days.
Can we maybe go to some of the sponsors and see if maybe they'd be willing to cover campsites at one of our other campgrounds just for that duration?
The thing is, the people that are at the fairgrounds, they don't have transportation.
Yeah.
And we move them out further.
Oh, right, so.
That would just hinder them worse, you know?
What about the, I know it's not county owned, it's private owned, and I do apologize, I can't think of what it's called.
South.
Yeah, the one south of town on the edge there by CNS.
Yeah, and we talked about that, you know, and I think that would be a great place. It's a very nice campground and, you know, but
Again,
I didn't think about what Brenda just mentioned.
Travel.
It's not very
Right,
conveniently
they're
located.
not by, well, Neiman's isn't there, so they're not by a grocery store. They would be by, you know, a few fast food places and gas. I mean, not that they need gas, but if they needed anything from a gas station, but unfortunately, I don't think that would work because they're not near literally some kind of grocery store where they could get food to eat.
Maybe just something we should think about.
Yeah, let's talk about that some more later.
That's all I have for the fair board.
How about Northern Michigan Counties Association?
No meeting, summer.
Okay, the guy got a lot.
Well, I think that's what we just went to last week, Robert, I think.
Oh, no, that's something else.
Okay. So, all right,
This one I think is like 2 or 3 times a year,
okay.
that one.
Yeah, you're good. That one's fine. You're good.
Okay, on MOA, again, our injection well is down. We're just waiting for our building to be built over the top of it. And electrical and all the mechanical stuff brought into that building, so we can start injecting and saving ourselves a bunch of money for every month. I think our bill last month for leachate haul, it was $138,000 we spent. Yeah, that's been running that. So, but again, Kim, he'll get a check Friday from us for $125,000 for landfill for.
I'll be watching for it.
It'll be Bert, I'll send Bert in with it.
We'll be there Friday morning just to ensure that.
Sounds good. I'll be there.
And again, next year, we don't know what this injection well, what the cost, what the allocation is going to be next year, so.
Yeah, I'll address that at budget time.
Yeah. Okay, Dare. John's not here. Northeast Michigan Consortium.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. There was no meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, they messed up. That's it. Well, that's that one. They never
I
have
know,
meetings.
I know.
Yeah. I keep asking. I was like, okay.
MCOG and
Triple MA?
Yeah, we already.
Well, you heard the update. The next meeting is Thursday, the 27th, so we haven't had a meeting for the NMMA since the last full board meeting. NEMCOG, there was no meeting in July.
Okay. Parks, Bill?
Parks, give you 617,253.80 are the assets. 152,196.41 are the liabilities, and the fund balance is 396,263.69. And Beaver Lake Park took in 45,980. It's 28.55 ahead of last year. Sunken Lake Park took in 45,313. They're $556 ahead of last year. And Long Lake Park took in $111,517. They're 57.27 ahead of last year. The total revenue on the three parks is $202,810, and they're $9,138 ahead of same time last year. And we're working on trying to get occupancy and how many people are there each year. In other words, we're increasing the number of people. We're increasing the dollars, but we don't know whether we're increasing the people or not. So we're going to try and figure that out.
I think that with the new system will help that.
Hopefully, yep.
Thanks, Bill. Solid waste, again, that was discussed 24th of September, or 25th. State's going to implement that plan, so we have to be ready for that. I know Bert and I have been working at Oscoda and Montmorency getting part of our plan. So the more people you have in it, the more money you get.
Exactly.
Thunder Bay Sanctuary, Jesse.
Not much to report. We did do they had the Festival of Sail this last weekend. And once again, the brown trout's been overshadowed by the world's largest rubber ducks. I tell you, as somebody who lives downtown, though, the increase when that rubber duck comes to town is like the foot traffic alone. I can barely make it out my door without running into people. So it's great attraction for our area. But everything went well. I'm still waiting for statistics to be reported, but from what I understand, everything went successfully.
I heard that the rubber ducky brought the babies this year too.
I heard that, but I didn't see it.
Baby rubber
which is-
duckies? I was like,
Baby duckies.
So Thunder Bay
people talk about it and they come from all over.
Just to see the.
A ton of my friends came up from downstate because they wanted to see the duck and I was cracking up.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Brings in money.
Travis, anything on Thunder Bay Transportation?
No, nothing to add there.
Okay,
You want
special orders?
Commissioner report?
Huh?
You want the road commissioner?
Yeah, go ahead. It's not on here, but
Great. Total cash funds is $3,554,896.62. And the total purchases for the month, this is end of June, is $228,891.99, which included several thousand tons of gravel that they used on the county roads, several thousand gallons of fuel, and they bought a manual transmission and clutch for one of the trucks for $9,280. Bowling Asphalt did the overlay on Scott Road, the wedge and overlay on Scott Road to Wolf Creek Road to Hubbard Lake Road for $306,217.28. And Bowling Asphalt also did the wedge on Heron Road, $14,107.80. And they made some purchases there for, they bought a, if I can find them here, there they are right here. They bought a truck hoist from Kessler Equipment of Saginaw for $77,694. It was the only bid they received for the hoist. And they bought some control signs from Give 'em a Break Granville, Michigan. One was $25,695. And they had another control sign that they purchased for 58,500 from Action Traffic in Grand Blanc. Those are portable traffic signs, so the guys don't have to stand out in the road, which is probably a good thing. They also bought a 18,400 pound 20-foot trailer for $16,470.
Did they have any discussion on putting in another road on 32 and?
They discussed it, but the township is going to have to get in on that deal. The Alpena Township is going to have to come to the table to help on that because the road commission can't do it by itself. The township has to have some responsibility there. And I guess everybody else is willing to help out the school system, whatever. Everybody wants that done. So
right.
I think that's going to happen. I just don't know when.
That's the extension of Third Okay, oh, good. I love that that's moving forward.
Yeah.
Even if it's a slow pace, I don't care, I'd love to see that get
For
done.
25 years.
I know, I'd really like to see that.
It needs to be done.
It's sassy on that one.
Okay,
Heads up.
thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Any correspondence there, Catherine?
Nothing.
Chelsea, you've been waiting patiently.
Good afternoon. So I do have just a little PowerPoint to help everybody follow along since these reports have become significantly long so that you don't have to flip back and forth the PDF or a bound report. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jessica.
I'm Chelsea McConnell from Street Lamp and Transline, and I am here to go over the 2022 report. I am just going to kind of go over some items that I think are important for the board to know, or maybe some things that changed from 2021. So one thing I like to do is just kind of give a really brief audit synopsis, since sometimes I think it's unclear what it is that we do during an audit. So at the conclusion of an audit, we opine on whether we believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. And an audit is the highest level of assurance in an attestation engagement you can have. However, it is important to remember it's not absolute assurance. The county's financial statements and note disclosures are required to comply with generally accepted accounting principles, and the audit is required to be conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as governmental auditing standards. So just a really brief audit report design. So the first thing within the report is our auditor's report, followed by management's discussion and analysis. And then there's the basic financial statements. There are the government-wide financial statements, which are your full accrual financial statements, followed by fund financial statements. The governmental fund financial statements are on the modified accrual basis of accounting. Then you have your proprietary fund statements, which are also on a full accrual basis of accounting, followed by fiduciary statements, and then your component statements. Next is the notes to the financial statements, followed by any required supplemental information. So required supplemental information is not actually part of the basic financial statements. However, GASB, or the Governmental Accounting Standard Board, decided that those are important enough items that they are required within the report. And last is the supplemental information, which includes individual and combining fund statements. So the first two things actually I'm going to briefly discuss are two letters that are not actually bound within the report. The first letter is titled Communication with Those Charged with Governance, which is due to the board. So a couple key points of this letter. Management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. In addition, we did implement Governmental Accounting Standard number 87 leases this year. All significant transactions have been recognized in these financial statements in the proper period. In addition, there are some numbers within these financial statements that are estimates. There are certain numbers that you know on a certain day, and there are certain numbers that you don't, and you have to come up with a reasonable estimate for those. So any significant estimates are listed here in the bullet points. I won't go over all of them. Most of them are historically the same as prior years. However, there was a new one, so I'm just going to point out that one, and that was for the opioid settlement. So that we had to estimate the present value of that unbilled receivable, since that is expected to be received over a number of years. In addition, I would like to point out we did not have any difficulties in performing our audit. There were audit adjustments identified, and those were posted and are reflected within these financial statements. In addition, we did not have any disagreements with management during the course of our audit. The next letter is a letter on internal control. And this letter is required by governmental auditing standards. Now, internal control is considered by auditors when designing and planning an audit. However, we do not form procedures to identify all deficiencies that could exist in internal control. So I do like to point out, we do not express an opinion on the effectiveness of the system of internal controls. However, if a deficiency in internal control did come to our attention, we would have the responsibility to communicate that to you. A deficiency in internal control exists when the design or operation of control does not allow management or employees to prevent, detect, or correct a misstatement on a timely basis. Now, I am pleased to say the only two internal control deficiencies that we identified are both repeat from prior years, and it's segregation of duties and preparation of the financial statements. Those are both very common in governmental reporting. You'd probably find them in 9 out of 10 governmental reports. And I just want to point out that actually when the audit is submitted to the state, they ask if were there any findings other than these. So even the state doesn't really care when these are in there. So next, I'm just going to briefly go over our audit opinion, which is on pages 1 through 3. We did issue an unmodified opinion, which is the best type of opinion you can be issued. It means we do believe the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. And materiality is a concept that auditors use. We also make various risk and internal control assessments, and then we plan and perform our audit. And during that audit process, we gather audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for this opinion. Our risks are evaluated from audit to audit. They change from year to year, and they change because of different facts and circumstances. So I'm just going to point out a couple areas that were considered higher risk for the 2022 audit for the county. Revenue is actually pretty much always considered high risk in an audit. It would be very rare that it wouldn't be considered a high risk in an audit. The other one is GASB 87 implementation. It's new this year. It just added risk, and there's a lot of agreements that the county has, so it was just a riskier area for the 2022 audit. The GASB 68 calculation, those are some very significant numbers. It's a significant estimate. So anytime that you have something like that, it just adds risk. So that's a riskier area as well. And capital assets, just because there is so much going on there and they're kind of spread out between a lot of departments. So that's just a riskier area as well. On page 17, you will find the full statement of net position. I did put a summarized comparative statement of net position in the presentation. So this statement is on the full accrual basis of accounting, and you have your governmental activities and business type activities. So this is showing the governmental activities for the statement of net position. And there were significant increases between the years for assets, deferred outflows, liabilities, and net position. Pension amounts were one of the main reasons for those increases. The deferred outflows of resources and liabilities increased about $1.9 and $2.9 million respectively. There was an increase in net position and assets, and one of the main reasons for that was the opioid settlement again. So it was estimated that approximately $1.1 million will be received through that settlement to the county. And this was discounted to the present value, which ended up being about an $830,000 unbilled receivable that was recognized. So on your fund statements, you don't recognize all of that in revenue. However, when it comes to this full accrual statement, that is all recognized in revenue. The next page is, again, just a summarized comparative governmental activities for the statement of activities. The full statement for that is on pages 18 and 19. There was a decrease in both revenues and expenses in comparison to 2021. Overall, the change in that position was almost 1.7 million in 2022, which was about $130,000 more than 2021. There was a decrease in operating grants from 2021, and about 1.3 million of that was due to a decrease in operating grants in public safety. And that was because there were ARPA funds used in 21 in that area, and that didn't happen in 2022. Recreation and culture operating grants also decreased, and that was primarily due to the library renovation being over at the end of 2021.
Hey, Chelsea.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good.
Am I missing something? Because I only have 7 pages.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
missing,
missing the actual report.
like, I'm missing.
I apologize.
And I can't pull it up in the agenda item details either.
Commissioner Lalonde, I am horribly embarrassed. I was reviewing this on my phone when I approved the materials to go out, and I do not see the actual audit included in board book. So that is entirely on me, that it is not included, not Chelsea.
I was like, 17, huh? And I was like flipping and I was trying to look at everybody else's stuff, yeah.
Looking on my shoulder.
I was, yeah.
And I apologize. There's a copy
okay.
sitting in the commissioner's office on the boardroom table. But the digital copy was not included in your materials, and that is entirely on me that I did not catch that was.
That's okay, I'll review it later. Can I get that? Yes, please. Okay, go for it.
Okay.
You're doing a great job.
I wish it was 7 pages though, but it is more like 117 or 100 and something pages. It would be much easier if it was though. So again, revenue also, there was an increase in other revenue there of about 831,000, and that was again due to the opioid settlement that we just discussed. Couple decreases in some expenses. Their economic development decreased, and that was due to the economic development fund closing out in 2021, and so all of that was transferred out, so that led to a big expense in 21 and didn't exist in 22. And then recreation and culture, that was again the library. So just a little brief discussion on pension benefits, just because those numbers are so significant within the report, and a lot of times I found board members are usually interested in that area. So what is it? The county participates in the Municipal Employees Retirement System, or MERS. MERS is an agent multiple employer statewide public employee pension plan that is established under Public Act 135 of 1945. MERS is the plan fiduciary for the county, and there are approximately just over 1,000 participating municipalities within Michigan within that plan. So again, like I said, on the statement of net position, those are some of the largest numbers on that statement. Pension liability net with the deferred inflows and outflows is about 9.1 million. It is important to remember that is a significant estimate. It's based on a number of factors, the actuarial valuation, a lot of different assumptions, such as the long-term expected rate of return on planned assets, discount rates, inflation, mortality rates, et cetera. So it is important to remember that. So what can you do? Basically continue to make those actuarially determined contributions, and just know that that's really a significant estimate reflected in these statements. So next, I'm going to go over just briefly the governmental fund statements. You'll find the full statements on pages 20 through 25. So overall, the governmental funds had an increase in fund balance of about 1 million. The general fund was expected to have a decrease in fund balance of about 500,000 from the final budgeted amounts at the end of 22. But ended the year about 560,000 above that projection. So that's a really positive thing for everybody to hear. And you actually increased your fund balance in the general fund about $65,000. The unassigned portion of that fund balance, which is available for spending at your discretion, increased about $276,000 from 2021. So one important ratio to look at to measure the general fund's health is how many days of expenditures you have in that unassigned fund balance. And the Government Finance Officers Association, or the GFOA, recommends no less than about 60 days for this financial measure. So at the end of 2022, there was about 130 days of expenditures in that unassigned fund balance. And that was an increase of about 6 days from where 2021 ended. So it was very, very consistent with the prior year. Just a little bit on the proprietary fund statements. Those full statements are on pages 20 through 31. The tax foreclosure fund estimated liability to be refunded to taxpayers. It's important to remember that's an estimate as well. That estimate was reassessed this year and decreased, and that led to an increase in the net position in that fund. Note 14, contingencies, claims, and litigation discusses some additional information regarding that fund and ongoing class action lawsuits regarding the foreclosed property sales that have been ongoing in Michigan for several years now. And just one last thing I wanted to briefly talk a little bit more about is GASB statement number 87. So that statement significantly changed how leases were recognized and came with a lot of additional requirements of disclosures in the notes to the financial statements. It also had us record and recognize some different transactions that we're going to talk about in a minute here within the financial statements themselves. So there were leases that the county was the leasee and leaseor to that fell into this guidance of this new standard. I think that there were approximately 130 agreements reviewed during this implementation process. So there was a lot of work that went into this implementation. Under this new standard, leases for which the county is the leasee, you now have a right to use asset recognized within your capital assets, and you also have a lease liability. And that is only recognized on those full accrual statements that we talked about initially. The initial measurement of the asset and liability is the present value of the future lease payments. And then the lease asset is amortized over the lease term, and the lease liability is reduced as payments are made and interest expense is recognized. Now, for leases for which the county is the leaseor there is a lease receivable and a deferred inflow recognized for those, and though that is recognized on both the fund level statements and the full accrual basis statements. Subsequent, the lease receivable is reduced by the principal portion of the lease payments received, and the deferred inflow of resources recognizes revenue over the lease term. There were also a number of additional note disclosure requirements. So within note 1, the summary of significant accounting policies, I think there's about an additional page of note disclosures within the note. Note 6, the capital assets now includes that right to use, leased intangible asset, as well as the correlated amortization. Note 7, leases, has a lot of additional information on this disclosure that is required, as well as a schedule showing future principal and interest payment requirements. And finally, note 9, long-term debt is required to show the lease liability and the long-term debt transactions for the year. And the only other, there is another statement that is going to be implemented during 2023 that has to do with subscription-based information technology, or what GASB refers to as SPIDAs. And that's going to be very similar to the lease standard. Hopefully there won't be as many agreements to review, but.
I can remember when it was GASB 50.
I know. So I think those are the main audit points I wanted to talk about. I also want to take a minute to thank everybody. Tim, Mary Catherine, Carrie, Lynn, thank you guys all. I know you guys do so much for us during the audit. And we ask a lot of questions and require a lot of information from you all. So we really appreciate that. And I'll to any questions.
Any questions? You got all the reading through it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on, we have a deficit reduction plan present. As the County of Alpena Indigent Defense Fund has $51,660 deficit fund balance on December 31st, 2022. And whereas 1971 PA 140 requires that a deficit reduction plan be formulated by the local unit of governments and filed with the Department of Treasury. Now, therefore, it is resolved that the County of Alpena legislative body adopts the following county indigent fund deficit reduction plan. Now, you got the numbers there. I won't go through them. I'm going to need a motion. But be it further resolved, the Alpena County Board of Commissioners submits a deficit reduction plan to the Michigan Department of Treasury for certification. I would entertain a motion to go forward with the deficit reduction plan.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Konashevsky, support.
I'll support it.
Support by Commissioner LaHaye. Discussion.
I'm sorry, just one quick question on under expenditures, under supplies, how do we go from 0 in 2022 to $2,000 in 2023? Is it projected? Is that we decide to separate that line item from another item, or?
Just
I'm
trying
guessing they needed paper clips and pens at some point. Like,
Yeah, so again, this is going to be actual versus projected.
Yeah.
So actual, they didn't spend any in 22, but we have it budgeted in 23.
I guess
So it's probably been a placeholder all along, so that if they do need to, they have that money available.
got it. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the travel, because that's quite a jump from 986 actual for 2022 to
So
5,200.
again, we're looking at actual for 22 and budgeted 23.
Are they planning a lot more trips in 23?
So this budget comes, is approved actually by the state.
But yes, they are anticipating more travel because of the trials that are anticipated for 2023.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, our-
Okay, I was aware of that, actually.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please, Carrie.
Commissioner Fournier?
Yes.
Commissioner Francisco?
Yes.
Commissioner Konashevsky?
Yes.
Commissioner LaHaye?
Yes.
Commissioner Osmer?
Yes.
Commissioner Lalone?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes. Public comment. Do the public back there want to speak up? Anybody raising their hand, Lynn? No. Not, I close public comment. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Commissioner LaHaye, support by Commissioner Fournier. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Thanks, everybody.
Careful.
There you go.
Thank you.